Hey, no, don't worry. I don't take offense. I try not to look at the numbers when they're going down when I talk.
Yeah.
I just tested.
Well, I guess we'll get started. It's nice to see Dave Sawyer, are you up in Maine today?
Yes, I am.
Oh, it's going long distance here. And of course, we have a couple of board members here, Julia and Edmar, and a couple of ambassadors, Tom. Margaret LaForest is here from the Massachusetts Office of Business Development. And and Todd Philly as well, ambassador. New member, Carl Almond, and Bo Boothman, who's remaining low key. And I'd like to introduce to you Dan Martiniello, who has been here before and has helped us with some tips. And I know we got another round coming. So Dan,
more tips. I got more tips for you folks.
Good.
Need to start a tip jar. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And, definitely happy to be talking to you folks. And, I'm glad everybody's got a lot of energy today, especially with it being the end of the week. And, but, as most of you know, at this point, we have a lot of new information that have come out due to the new stimulus package that got signed recently. So, one of the things you're going to find in this presentation is I'm going to go over what we have today. There still is a lot of information that we haven't gotten the full guidance on yet. So we haven't gotten that meat and potatoes on certain programs, especially like the Shuttered venue grant program that we got a high level overview yesterday. It was about a 15-minute presentation. So, I'll talk a little bit about that, and then, just some upcoming things when it comes to PPP forgiveness as well. And then some enhancements that are the SBA flagship program, so 7A 504 and our micro lending program that might take place in the next month or so. So let me just bear with me while I pull up the presentation. Let's see. Can everybody see that? Get a couple thumbs up. All right, cool. All right, like I said, my name's Dan Martiniello. I work for the SBA in the Massachusetts District Office. I'm one of the lender relations specialists, and this is my contact information if anybody needs that. And if I can't get to all your questions today, feel free to shoot me an email, call me on my cell phone, and I'll be gladly happy to talk to you offhand. So we're going to go over the Paycheck Protection Program, the relaunch. So technically, this is wave number 3. So when it comes to the Paycheck Protection Program, just to give you a little bit of a background, if anybody's new to that or haven't heard about it, which I'm sure there's not many at this point, but it initially started back in early April. There was a lot of changes that happened from April and through over the summer. There was a lot of different guidance that came out along the way. By the end of, I think it was May, funds started running out, and then the Congress appropriated more funds to the program. That went all the way through the first week of August. And then the PPP second wave was shut down on August 8th. And now here we are, as everybody is well aware, you're watching whatever news station you're watching. The Economic Aid Relief Act was signed right after Christmas time. And we have a lot of money that's going out to the small business community. And hopefully, this can help businesses, stay afloat during these winter months while, our government hopefully can come up with a clear plan on getting these vaccinations so that we're, running at a normal capacity at some point this year. So just to give you a breakdown of, where the money is being appropriated, here on this slide, you'll see a listing here based on the Appropriations Act. So as you can see here, a good portion of these funds that are going out into the small business community is through the PPP first and second draw loans. So $284.45 billion. So that's a lot of money, folks. Hopefully, there will be plenty of opportunity for all small businesses you know, from your smallest of the small, your disadvantaged to some of your larger small businesses take advantage of these you know, of these funds. Also, too, we have $15 billion appropriated for the Shuttered grant program. So that's for like live venues, theaters, museums, etc. And then another 20 billion is going to the EIDL Advance program. So the economic injury disaster loan that is filtered through our SBA Disaster Center. That program is now up and running again. And then we have $3.5 billion for 7A debt relief program. So if anybody is on here that has an SBA loan, so whether it's a 7A loan, a 504 loan, etc., you probably were aware that, you know, during the course of 2020, you had about 6 months of payments that the SBA, you know, paid on your behalf for additional debt relief. So that is going to the more funds have been appropriated for that as well. From what we're hearing right now, there's probably going to be about a 3-month payment, and they're anticipating it's going to start around February. I just don't know the clear dates yet. Then also we had $2 billion for SBA lending enhancements. So this is going to cover a wide variety of things when it comes to SBA loans in general. So with guarantee fee changes, it's going to be some fee changes for our lending partners. You know, some technical assistance grants for our micro lenders. So a lot of good changes, and I think right now what they're doing behind the scenes in Washington is working on, you know, a plan to divvy up those funds, you know, in the best manner possible to hopefully folks can take advantage of that as well. And so this is just on this slide, this is just a kind of a clip from our website, so SBA.gov itself. So when you're looking for the most up-to-date current information on small business debt relief, you definitely want to make sure that you go to SBA.gov or Treasury.gov. You know, these are the two websites that are going to have your most up-to-date information. You know, when we send out things through our email system locally, that means all that information will be on SBA.gov. So you'll see when you go there and you go under a coronavirus relief section, you know, all the different options that have to do with small business debt relief. So let's get into, you know, the PPP and access to capital and you know, the rollout. So initially, just to give you some background on this third wave of PPP, the SBA's intention was to try to roll this out, you know, in phases. You know, try to give small, you know, those really hard hit small businesses some opportunity to apply for either a first draw PPP loan or a second draw PPP loan. So a lot of that started, you know, this past week. So initially, the only folks that could accept applications, so the only lending partners that could accept applications were CFIs, community financial institutions. So in Massachusetts and in most states, there was really only a few lenders that could actually accept applications, you know, starting this week. But as of today, in lending institutions with 1 billion in assets or under will be allowed to accept either first draw or second draw PPP applications. So, you know, you're probably looking at a lot of your credit unions and your smaller traditional banking institutions that would fall under. Then starting on Tuesday, so after the holiday, all of our other lending partners will be able to start accepting applications. So, you know, if you haven't already, you know, I would just, at least at this point, have a conversation with your lender and just let them know what your possible intention may be. So if you're planning on applying for a second draw PPP, or you didn't get a chance to apply for your first draw in the first, you know, wave of things, you know, just give them a heads up, let them know, because right now I'm sure most of them they're trying to allocate a correct amount of personnel to help with the flow of all of these applications that are going to come their way. And every lender is going to be handling these a little bit differently. Some are going to be hiring, you know, third party services to help with these applications. Some are going to have electronic format on their own website. Some are going to be just taking the paper applications that are available. So it's a good opportunity to connect with your lender to find out what's the best method for you to take, to apply for either your first or second draw a PPP loan. So as far as some enhancements that have happened with this new wave, as you'll see here, on the slide here, a lot of the criteria, the eligibility when it comes to first draw PPP loans is relatively the same. However, we have added additional organizations that weren't eligible in the first and second wave. So on the left-hand side, you have your majority of your business entities. So whether it's partnerships, corporations, LLCs, you have your sole proprietors, your independent contractors, self-employed, individuals. They were all eligible in the first go around. Same thing with 501c3s. Now we've included the 501c6. So what comes to mind for me is a lot of Chamber of Commerce might be in that category. Then you have your veterans organizations, your tribal businesses, and newly additioned is your housing cooperatives, destination marketing organizations, and eligible news organizations. So you're still going to have to comply with different size standards and other eligibility criteria when it comes to ownership of the entity, and there's going to be certain limitations. But for all intents and purposes, those are the organizations, business entities that can actually apply for a first and second draw or second draw PPP. And then also too, on the right hand side here, you'll see that, now the borrower has the option to select a covered period during which they can use the PPP loan proceeds anytime between 8 and 24 weeks after the funds are dispersed to you. So, initially during the first wave, it was only 8 weeks that you could utilize these PPP funds. Then with the Flexibility Act in early June, it changed that you could either use 8 or 24 weeks. Now they're basically, the SBA is basically stating that you can use these funds anytime within that given time frame, 8 to up to 24 weeks. And then also, I know this was a huge headache for a lot of folks. I know it was a huge headache for our lenders, and I definitely know it was a huge headache for our small business community when it comes to those idle advances and how that all worked when it came to PPP, forgiveness. Because let's be honest, when this first came out, it was very confusing. There was a lot of information. These are totally new programs across the board. So whether it was at the district office level, whether it was with our lending partners, the what was going to be lumped in together was not really clear. So, when it came to the idle advances and the PPP itself, those are both considered grants for all intents and purposes under the CARES Act. So the CARES Act basically read that no business entity can have more than one grant. So what happened was it became an issue when it comes to forgiveness. They lumped that idle advance. So if you had if you're a small business that applied for an idle loan and also took out an advance, they lump that in with your overall forgiveness. So if you were thinking, hey, I'm probably going to be fully forgiven for my PPP loan, all of a sudden you have to worry about that idle advance. Maybe it was 5,000, 6,000, whatever the case may be. Now you got your forgiveness remittance from the SBA, and the SBA came back and said, well, since you got that idle advance, you actually have a remaining balance on your PPP loan of 5 or 6,000 or whatever that case may have been. With the new stimulus package signed, this is all going away. So if you haven't applied for forgiveness yet, you're not going to need to worry about the idle advance. The SBA has already worked on new forgiveness applications. They will not be deducting that from your overall forgiveness or factoring that into your overall forgiveness. If you already received final remittance on your PPP forgiveness application, the SBA right now is working behind the scenes to work with the lenders to get all of those folks reimbursed with interest on those idle advances. So, be on the lookout. Your lender will probably be reaching out to you within the next few weeks once that gets worked out, letting you know that you no longer owe that portion on your PPP loan. And for most folks, that's probably the only portion that wasn't forgiven. And then, so also too, when it comes to, what's coming in the future when it comes to PPP forgiveness, the SBA is developing a simplified forgiveness application for loans $150,000 or under. So nationwide, when it came to PPP loans, there was about 87% of the loans provided were for $150,000 or under. So this application, from what we know right now, is going to be a quick, streamlined, one-page application, very low supporting documents, if any, and and you should be receiving your forgiveness very quickly. From what I understand right now, I don't think there's going to be any consideration when it comes to full-time employee counts and things like that, so it should loosen a lot of the burden for your small business community. So let's get into the first drop, PPP loan eligibility. So these next few slides, I want to separate the two because you have your first draw. So these are for a majority of folks who were not able to take advantage of PPP, over the course of the summer and the spring. And then we'll go into second draw because there are some variances as far as eligibility goes. So I'll try to highlight, those here in these next few slides. So when it comes to who can apply for a first draw PPP loans, you have eligible small business entities, together with their affiliates have 500 or fewer employees. So, this includes all of your other eligible entities, as you can see here, nonprofits, veteran organizations, tribal concerns, etc. Also to entities with more than 500 employees in certain industries that meet SBA's alternative size standard or SBA's size standards for the following industries can also apply. So as you can see here at the bottom, there are some exceptions to the rule when it comes to based on the category of your business industry. So anybody with a NICS code of 72, so your accommodation and food service sector, you may be able to go above that. But when it comes to say 501c6 organizations or destination marketing organizations, you want to make sure you have no more than 300 employees. And then just to continue on application and eligibility, when it comes to applying, so everybody's deadline for applying, both on first and second draw, is going to be March 31st, 2020 at this point in time. and you as the borrower will be able to apply, through all of our 7A lending, partners, so your federally insured depository institutions, federally insured credit unions, your eligible bank lenders, and any farm credit system institutions that are participating in the PPP program. So like I said in the beginning of the presentation, you're gonna probably see a lot of like your credit unions or your smaller banking institutions are gonna be able to accept applications today. But I would definitely, if that's who you worked with in the past, reach out to them today to find out what's the best method for you to apply with them, and then all of your other institutions will be able to start accepting applications on Tuesday after the holiday. So then, going forward too, you have existing PPP borrowers that did not receive loan forgiveness by December 27th. You may reapply for a first draw PPP loan if previously returned some or all of their first draw PPP loan funds. So we just got guidance yesterday on this when it came to PPP first draw increases. There's very limited amount of folks who can apply for increases, and really the only folks that can apply for increases is your partnerships, your seasonal employers, and just like I said here, when it came to folks who may have returned the PPP funds because they weren't sure if they needed them at the time. So if that falls under you, make sure you connect with your lender on that, because yeah, it is, it was about a 3 or 4 page guidance and it's very specific. So, most folks are either gonna, if they never had a PPP loan, you'll do a first draw. But if you did have a PPP loan, most of them are gonna fall under this second draw. So all new first draw PPP loans will have the same terms regardless of your lender or borrower. So it doesn't matter where you go as far as your lender or who you're working with. The terms are the terms, and they're outlined the same way across the board. And when it comes to these terms, I'll go over it in the next few slides. You're going to see that there really isn't any changes as far as the rate, the amount of years you have to pay off if your loan isn't fully forgiven, things like that. None of that's really changed. So second draw PPP loans. So initially, we want to make sure that with this go around that we're trying to target your small businesses, or small businesses that don't have as many employees as the initial first draw folks may have. So when it comes to this, not everybody that falls under a first draw may be able to apply for a second draw, because a lot of it has to do with the size of your operation, how many employees you actually have. So but for all intents and purposes, if you were eligible for a first draw, you're going to be eligible for a second draw. Another thing is you had to have used your first draw PPP funds, or you intend to use those funds for eligible expenses before your second draw PPP loan is dispersed. So that's one of the certifications that you'll see on the application is, have you utilized your first draw PPP funds in full already? You want to make sure that you can certify that, because the lender is relying on your certifications as the borrower. And then also too, you want to make sure that you have no more than 300 employees, and that you can demonstrate at least a 25% reduction in gross receipts between a comparable quarter in 2019 and 2020. So this is new. So this isn't something that you're going to see when it comes to first draw PPP loans. So, this is why, it's very, even though you may be an eligible business entity for a second draw, some of these things at the bottom may make you ineligible if you can't provide proof of reduction, or you have too many employees. So, when it comes to the reductions, they want to see, you want to compare a similar quarter. So if if you want to compare, say, quarter three in 2020 with quarter three in 2019, that's acceptable. There's a lot of examples. So the SBA has an interim final rule. So this is your guidance that provides all of the details of what's acceptable when looking at your comparable quarters and demonstrating a reduction in gross receipts. There's a variety of examples in there. So, I'll give you a few today, but, to go over all of them, I would definitely make sure that you go to sba.gov, because that information is all listed there. Also, too, when it comes to gross receipts, the SBA basically breaks it down to all forms of revenue. That's what they're defining your gross receipts. So continuing on with second draw PPP loan details. So eligible borrowers, can apply. Again, the deadline is March 31st, similar to the first draw PPP, and the same lenders are gonna, be available to the second draw PPP loan applicants. When it comes to most borrowers, as far as how much you can get when it comes to your PPP loan itself. So how much your proceeds, a lot of it's going to be the same as far as how you average your average monthly payroll, just like you would in the first draw and the first go around. So in the first go around, everybody was basically, you had a formula based on your business entity. There was a little variances, but for the most part, your you're adding up all of your payroll costs, you're dividing it by 12, and then you're timesing your average monthly payroll costs by 2.5. Okay, so that's what you're going to do again for the second draw. There's just a cap as far as the amount goes. It's going to be $2 million. On the first draw, that cap is $10 million. The only difference is if you're in that accommodation and food service sector, so that NICS code 72, you're going to be allowed to compute your average monthly payroll costs at 3.5 times the average instead of 2.5, but still the cap of $2 million as far as the amount of proceeds that you can get. So when continuing on with second draw loan applications, you want to make sure that you're utilizing the correct application. So the application that you're going to need to use is 2483-SD for second draw. So that is the application for second draw only. 2483 is for the first draw. When it comes to this, though, again, make sure you check with your lender to find out what method that they're actually going to accept applications. Like I said prior, some of them may be doing this with an online version. Some may be accepting paper applications. Contact your lender and find out how they plan on accepting applications. So, just so you're saving yourself some time. Make sure too when you're calculating, borrower's payroll costs for the second draw. If you can use either the 12-month period prior to when the loan is made or calendar year 2019. So with that said, if the borrower is using 2019 as a basis for calculating a PPP second draw loan and going with your same lender, there's really no need to provide documentation to support the requested loan, since your lender has already received that documentation in the first go around. So one thing when it comes to this second draw, you're not required as a borrower to go to the same lender, but going to the same lender is going to have its advantages. I'm sure most of you folks probably had a relationship with your lender, so that's always the advantage there. Again, saving yourself time and paperwork and the amount of information that you need to supply to your lender. If you're going to the same lender, you're really just supplying the application at that point. But if you have to go to a new lender, expect to be, depending on what payroll you decide to use, whether it was the last 12 months or 2019, get ready to supply all that information again. If you don't have an account with them, there's bank requirements that they may need to either open an account, or they might need to figure out what your business is and open up an entity under your business name. So just be prepared for that if you decide to go to someone that you haven't in the past. Also, the economic aid simplified forgiveness process for loans under 150,000. So, what that is going to cause is if you have a loan for $150,000 or less, technically you're not going to be required to provide any upfront revenue reduction information. You'll have to provide that during your forgiveness whenever you submit your forgiveness application. But at application for your second draw, you will not have to supply that if your loan is going to be for $150,000 or under. But again, talk with your lender about that, because these loans are being issued out by our lending partners. They have what's called delegated authority, so they act on behalf of the SBA. So just make sure that that's the route they want to go. And even though guidance may dictate otherwise, it might be more beneficial if you have that, if you can supply that to them now rather than later. So again, communicate with your lender on that. So just some breakdown as far as payroll and non-payroll expenses. So a lot of the eligible payroll expenses that you can utilize these funds for haven't changed. It's just a continuation of a lot of the same things, but the non-payroll expenses have opened up some more, and there's been additional clarity. There's definitely been a greater emphasis on providing allowing borrowers to basically utilize these funds to cover a variety of expenses. So as you can see here on the left side, you have your payroll costs that were defined in the CARES Act and the economic aid in the first interim rule. So that's all of your salaries, your tips, wages, other sorts of commission, all that still applies. Costs related to continuation of group healthcare, life, disability, vision, or dental benefits during periods of paid sick, medical, or family leave, and group healthcare, life, disability, vision, and dental insurance premiums as well. So, and then on the right hand side, we have what's new is we have covered operations expenditures. So any sort of payments for business software or cloud computing services that facilitates business operations, product, service, delivery, the processing, payment, or tracking of payroll expenses, human resource sales, billing functions, or accounting or tracking of supplies, inventory, records, and expenses. Whew, that is a mouthful. So again, to continue on that, what's new is your covered property damage. So anybody that may have experienced property damage or vandalism or looting due to different public disturbances that occurred during 2020, those things will be covered if they weren't covered by insurance. Also, covered worker protection expenditures. So that's a wide variety of things as well. Just to give you a few examples, if you are a restaurant and, a lot of these restaurants, it probably applies to you, you had to reconfigure your restaurant, whether you had to put up those plastic sneeze guard barriers, or you had to reconfigure a restaurant for additional outdoor seating, and the cost that it came with that, or a lot of small businesses that had to start buying PPE equipment, for the safety of your employees. All of that now is eligible non-payroll expenses, and you can use PPP funds for those. So one thing to keep in mind when it comes to the PPP funds, if you're familiar with the first wave, you had to use so much of the funds for payroll versus non-payroll. So that still applies. So the if you are intending to get full forgiveness, you have to use at least 60% of the funds for eligible payroll expenses and no more than 40% of the funds for non-payroll expenses if your intention is for full forgiveness. So just to go over the forgiveness terms, so first and second draw loans made to eligible borrowers, they both qualify for a covered period between 8 to 24 weeks. So whether you're first draw or second draw, that will be the same. Employee and compensation levels, you want to make sure that you're still maintaining those. Loan proceeds, are spent on on payroll costs and other eligible expenses. That still applies. And like I said earlier, at least 60% of those proceeds are spent on eligible payroll costs. When it comes to the terms of this loan, so the SBA is guaranteeing these loans 100% for our lending partners. And there's going to be no collateral requirements, no personal guarantees. The interest rate is 1% across the board. It's a 5-year maturity on all of these loans. Remember, these loans are processed through our lending partners. This isn't something that you can call the Massachusetts district office and apply through us. We're not accepting applications. Lender, the big key here for you as borrowers is the lenders are relying on your certifications. You are certifying that you need these funds, that you're eligible, that you're going to use it for the appropriate manner. All of that is reliant on you. So if your loan eventually goes in for review status down the line, if once you provide a forgiveness application, if for one reason or another the SBA finds that the loan was used inappropriately, or you were ineligible, the SBA, the treasurer, they're going to be looking to talk to you, the business owner, because this is not typical from normal banking standards, whether it's just normal SBA lending, whether it's conventional lending. I'm sure some of you have gotten business loans in the past. Lenders, the SBA, they ask for a lot of information. Usually, they're going to check your credit. They want personal guarantees. They want there's typically collateral requirements. All of that in this case is not required. So this is why it's very important for you as the borrower to understand that the liability is on you versus the lender, because they don't have the opportunity to do all those background checks that they normally would, whether they were doing a conventional loan or doing a loan under one of our flagship SBA programs. And then just lastly, loan amounts in 2.5 Loan amounts will be calculated based on 2.5 times your average monthly payroll, or if you're in that next code 72, it'll be 3.5 times. And that's for second draw, just as a reminder. So with forgiveness, right? So, that's still in this process. I know, a lot of information came out when it came to opening the doors up for new PPP applications, but the forgiveness process is still happening. I'm sure there's still a lot of small businesses out there that may have not have applied for forgiveness on their first PPP loan, and that's fine. But these are just kind of some of the basic steps on what you need to do, to submit an application for forgiveness. So make sure that you're contacting your PPP lender and complete the correct forgiveness application form, because as you can see on the right side, there's different forms, and each form applies to a different situation. Compile all of your documentation, that you may need depending on your situation. If you need help with that, this is a great opportunity for you to seek help through one of our resource partners. Whether it's the Small Business Development Center, whether it's SCORE, whether it's the Center for Women in Enterprise, or the Veterans Business Outreach Center. All of these organizations are out to help you folks get through this process as well. You might have an accountant, maybe you have a business advisor or CPA. They should probably be able to help you as well, compile any sort of financial documents you may need. Want to make sure at the end of the day you submit that forgiveness application form and documentation to your PPP lender, and then just try to continue to communicate with your lender, throughout the process. One thing when it comes to the actual process, once you submit your application and your supporting docs on the forgiveness side of things to your lender technically has 60 days to submit that forgiveness application to the SBA. So there's a portal that just the lenders themselves have access to. That myself and my colleagues at the office don't even have access to this portal. So they submit that through there. Once the SBA forgiveness team receives that, the SBA put a self-imposed 90 days requirement that they would provide remittance. Some loans are going over 90 days. We're not seeing a overwhelming amount of forgiveness applications going over 90 days, but some are. If that's the case, I wouldn't worry too much, because it really has to do, from what we've been told, it really just has to do with the amount of applications being submitted, and the volume that's on everybody's desk right now. So um, when it comes to that, sometimes your lender may not know, the status of it, because the SBA forgiveness team, they really don't give out like weekly statuses on these forgiveness applications. And even when the lender reaches out to them, they get very generic responses, just basically stating that the application is still being reviewed. So there's no really like waiting line queue that a lender can kind of go to that will show them what stage that application is in. So just, try to work with your lender. Don't get frustrated with them if they don't necessarily know, because the SBA really doesn't give them any hard details on that. So as you can see, three types of forgiveness applications are out right now. So you have the 3508S. So these are for your, if you're a borrower that had a PPP loan of $50,000 or under. This form is more of a streamlined form. It allows you to basically do like a one-page application. You don't have to worry about FTE counts or salary reduction counts. You're exempt from that when you use this form. Then you have the 3508EZ. So this will, these are for folks that maybe have a loan over 50,000, but also certain safe harbors may apply to you. So whether it's um, maybe you fall under the category of a business that hasn't been able to fully operate based on the health restriction guidance that is giving out, you can utilize that form. Certain things like that, and these applications each have their own set of instructions. So if you're unsure of which application to use, go to the instructions, because the instructions will tell you whether this will be applicable for you or not. And then you have the standard long version 3508. We don't anticipate too many folks to have to use this form. Like I said earlier, about 86 to 87% of the loans provided to the small business communities was $150,000 or under. So they're going to be more in line with the new simplified application that's coming out and the first two forms you see here. So again, that $150,000 forgiveness application is still being worked on. It's under development, but we should be hearing about that relatively soon. And as soon as we do, we will make sure we get that information out to all of you folks. All right, so let's transition a little bit here and stop talking about PPP, because my mouth is getting dry just saying PPP over and over. So now we have the Shuttered Venue Operator Grant Program. So this is a totally new grant program provided in this new stimulus package. We got a quick high-level overview yesterday. That was only about 15 minutes long, so they really didn't give us too much detail other than, expect this program to be rolled out within the next month or so. So as you can see here, there was about $15 billion in appropriated funds, of which $2 billion will be set aside for small employers. So these are employers that fall under these categories down below that have 50 full-time employees or under. So that will be, from what we understand, that will be rolled out within the first few months. So this program itself is going to have, I think, 3 to 4 stages as well. So as you can see here, who's going to be eligible to apply for this grant. You're looking at your live venue operators or promoters, theatrical producers, live performing arts organizations and operators, relevant museum operators, motion picture, theater operators. You have your talent reps and things like that. So those are going to be who this program really is for. And as you can see on this slide, there's going to be some criteria that each entity must abide by. Now, I don't have the full guidance, so there may be more than this, but this is just the high level overview. So you as the business entity must have been in operation as of February 29th, 2020. Your venue or promoter must not have received a PPP loan. So now with that, this grant program, this is basically, it's for these type of business industries. You're gonna need to choose one or the other. So you either apply for a PPP loan, whether it's your first draw or your second draw, or you apply for this Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. You are not going to be able to have be able to get funds from both programs. Now, if you had a first draw PPP loan prior in the first or second wave, that will not make you ineligible for the Shuttered Grant Venue program. This is only if you are either if you were intending to apply for a second draw PPP loan, or you were intending to apply for that first draw PPP loan because you didn't in the first 2 waves. You're going to have to choose between the 2 programs. However, the economic injury disaster loan that is offered through the disaster center, you can have that as well as the grant program. So you can have PPP and EIDL, you can have the SVO and EIDL, but you can't have SVO and PPP. And then priorities are going to be anticipated for the smallest entities and the hardest hit. So from what I was told, they're going to go by basically the amount of full-time employees and how much revenue reduction you had between April of 2020 and December of 2020. Those will be your most prioritized factors when it comes to who's going to be able to get the funds first. Okay, so additional eligibility requirements will be coming out soon. So we anticipate that in the next few weeks. All right, so enhancements to other SBA lending programs. So this is some more information, because a lot of funds were appropriated for different enhancements for our flagship program. So none of the official guidance, that's why I put in red up here, you'll see none of the official guidance on these enhancements has been made public or has even been given to us at the district office yet. So this is just, again, it's a high level overview of what may be to come. So it might have some variances when it actually officially comes out. So there's going to be some temporary enhancements to the terms on your 7A loan programs by increasing loan guarantees from 75 to 90% and offering reduced or no fees to borrowers and lenders when it comes to these programs. Also, there may be some temporary increases to the 7A Express loan limit to $1 million, and that will be good till October 1st of 2021. So that was something similar that actually happened with the CARES Act. The Express 7A Express was increased to 1 million, but that stopped at the end of the year of 2020. And then after that, it looks like it will get reduced to 500,000. So right now, initially SBA Express has a limit of 350,000. So it looks like that will go up permanently, even after the temporary increase. And then loan guarantees to provide access to needed working capital, those might change as well. Also, there's going to be some temporary elimination of fees on the 504 loan program and favorable terms for refinancing loans. So, I don't know what those are going to entail yet, but once we do, we'll certainly get it out to the community. Increases on the aggregate loan limits for microloan intermediaries in order to ensure intermediaries have increased capacity to make loans to underserved and underbanked borrowers. So that's a big thing too, because our micro lenders, they work heavily with your disadvantaged businesses, and for the most part, they're maxed out when it comes to an individual loan at $50,000. So we're hearing that may get increased as well. How much is it going to get increased? I don't know yet. Just some other debt relief program appropriations that are going to be happening as well. Again, disclaimer, the final guidance has not come out yet, but when it comes to the CARES Act and those section 1112 payments, so if you have an SBA loan currently, you are probably familiar with this. The SBA, over the course of the spring and summer and into the fall, picked up 6 months worth of whatever your payment was based on your SBA loan. They appropriated more funds for that to continue. So I think they're going to be starting that in February again, and it looks like they're going to supply at least 3 months worth of principal and interest payments, with a maximum of, I think, $9,000 a month payment. So that's key there as well. Also, towards the very end of the year, I think it was about the first week of December, the SBA supplied some guidance to our lending partners when it came to issuing out 1099s due to these CARES Act payments. So you were going to have to report those on your tax returns. But with the new signing of the stimulus package, that has gone away. So if you did receive a 1099 from your lender, be on the lookout for probably a notification from your lender soon, letting you know that no longer needs to be reported. So everybody's probably going to wait for the official guidance to come out on that. And then where to find the most accurate information. I kind of talked about that in the beginning of the presentation, but I know there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of articles and on various news outlets that talk about different programs and resources that are happening when it comes to the SBA programs. If you really want to understand the meats and potatoes of things and understand what the actual guidance is, make sure you are going to sba.gov and treasury.gov. That is the official information. These media outlets, they might take bits and pieces from the guidance that we issue out, but they don't give you the full overview of everything. So please make sure that if you really want the most accurate information, have these two websites bookmarked. And then this is just an overview of the different forms that are out there. Again, this is all, if you need to know where to find this, SBA.gov, Treasury.gov will have all of your applications listed on their websites. And then if you need assistance helping you, whether it's your first time getting a PPP loan, whether it's your second time getting a PPP loan, whether you're going through your forgiveness process, or whether you just need general help with different variety of small business technical assistance, reach out to the resource partners. This is your tax dollars at work. You know, these folks are great. We work a lot with all of the different uh, um, resource partners, you know, throughout Massachusetts, you know, trying to help small businesses, and they have so many people there that are able and willing to help folks, you know, through, you know, all of this, you know, debt relief process, but also just general, you know, small business assistance. So whether it's SCORE, the Massachusetts Small Business Development Center Network, you know, your Center for Women in Enterprise, or VBOC, you know, make sure that you go onto their websites. You know, depending on what city and town you're in, there's probably a local, you know, chapter or a regional office that you can connect with. And here is the sites for some of the organizations that, again, we work with. So, you know, check out their sites, you know, and find out who you need to connect with. We also work with the Massachusetts Export Center and the Massachusetts Procurement Technical Assistance Center. So that's, you know, folks who are looking to get into government contracting. They're great when it comes to, you know, helping folks find out if they're viable or capable to do business with the government. And then just a quick overview of what else the SBA is doing, because I know, you know, everybody's got PPP on their mind and grants and economic relief. But just remember, the SBA has all of their flagship programs up and running. So our lending partners are still, you know, looking to see if that is an avenue that they need to take for small business loan requests outside of your, you know, your PPP and the Shuttered grant and things like that. You know, 7A, 504 microloans. These are all great programs. Also, too, the federal contracting programs. You know, if you're a woman-owned business, you're a disabled a veteran, you know, if you're anybody that may be considered a disadvantaged business, you want to look into these programs, because you might be able to get a leg up in doing business with the federal government and different agencies throughout Massachusetts, and you might be able to, you know, start working with them. So we provide a lot of different webinars at our office. We're going to be continuing a full webinar series on federal government contracting, probably starting again in February. So be on the lookout for that. If you haven't signed up for the SBA Massachusetts website, I'm sorry, my kids are yelling. If you can hear in the background, that's sometimes the disadvantage of working at home. But when it comes to the federal government contracting, we are definitely, you know, full throttle on that. We want to make sure small businesses understand the benefits of that and the opportunities in that. So if you're not signed up for our email system, go to the SBA Massachusetts. You can just Google that. We have our own website. You can sign up for our government delivery, and we will let you know of any upcoming webinars. And then we have surety bond programs, we have export trade and assistance, and we also work with a variety of government agencies on research and development grants. So it's a lot of stuff going on outside of PPP. All right, so we can open it up for questions. Let me just take this down. I'll stop sharing the screen.
Hey, Dan, it's Diane. I'm in the background here. I've been checking on some questions for you, and
Oh, hey, Diane. Diane's part of our team here at the Massachusetts district office.
And I apologize, I got a call, so I wasn't able to listen to everything. So I'm going to ask a couple questions, and if you answer this, just tell me next. Is the cost of decontamination of an infected business covered by PPP?
That one I'd have to look up, because there was a lot of examples when it came to you know, different expenditures for PPE and things like that. I don't remember seeing that, but if that person who asked, if they want to email me on the side, I'll try to see if that's in there. I'm not 100% sure that that's in there though.
Okay. And then what forgiveness applies to a sole proprietor with employees?
Say that one more time, Dan?
The question, and Bo, if you want to unmute and ask it yourself, what forgiveness applies to a sole proprietor, I'm assuming, with employees? Bo, do you want to unmute and ask the question?
Well, so I mean that it will depend. So I don't know what the $150,000 forgiveness application looks like yet. You probably, if you haven't applied for forgiveness yet, you can I'm assuming, you know, a sole proprietor, even if you have some employees, if your loan's under that amount, you should be able to utilize that one. That should, I don't foresee that as an application you wouldn't be able to use. Also, you know, depending on your situation, you may be able to utilize that 35008 EZ because that, even though you're a sole proprietor with employees, some of the other safe harbors in there may apply to you. And if your loan is under $50,000 or under, you should be able to utilize that 3508S that
Okay.
alleviates the FTE count and payroll cost reduction count.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's under the 50,000, but so I didn't know if it was the EZ or the S that would be there. It's just one
Yeah,
employee.
if I were you, I'd use the S if it was under at this point in time, or wait for the 150. You know, that's you. So folks, when it comes to the forgiveness, as far as when you have what your time frame is when you need to submit that forgiveness application. You know, I think there is some confusion, you know, out there. I think folks are hearing different things, but whenever your covered period ends, so whether you elected an 8-week covered period, a 24-week covered period, whatever the case may be, once your covered period ends, you have 10 months from the date your covered period ends to submit a forgiveness application, okay? Before any sort of payments would be required by you. So just keep that in mind. I was hearing we get a lot of emails, and there's some folks that think they have to submit right away after their forgiveness is end, and some have to, or X amount of weeks. It's 10 months after the date of your covered period ends. That's the last day you have to, you know, if you intend to get fully forgiven for your loan.
Okay, another question. Are allowed expenses in the forgiveness application tax deductible or not?
That is more probably an IRS
I would
question.
think that'd be with your accountant, right?
Yeah, you probably want to check with your account. That's not my forte, unfortunately. So if any CPA is on here or an accountant, I don't know if they might know the answer to that yet, but yeah, that's a good question. But yeah, definitely check with your financial advisor on that. They'll probably be better to answer that.
Okay, are we allowed to apply for multiple grant loans? For example, MCGG grant is due today, but there is no known outcome.
Yeah, so as far as grants at state level and federal level, remember what I talked about today, that's all federal level, okay? Then you have your state level grants, they're doing something totally separate. As far as what our concern is at the federal level, we don't have anything in our guidance that states that you can't apply for state level grant. There's nothing specific on that end. However, I don't know on the state level side if that's the case, like the reverse way around, if they say you can't apply for federal grant funding. So you want to check at the state level on what their guidance says, because I'm not the expert on the state level guidance.
Dan, I think on the application, it asks if you have any other, if you've applied for any other assistance.
Yeah,
But-
does it make you ineligible? Do you know? Because I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, because I know we don't have anything that would make someone ineligible, because every state's doing a variety of different things, and that would just, I don't think the federal government wouldn't be able to keep track of every state and what they're doing and through who for them to kind of include that in the grant funding on our level. But yeah, just check with the state or MGCC. I'm sure they'll be able to find out if that's going to make you ineligible on their programs.
That's it. Anybody have questions you want to do a shout out? Oh, sorry. Here's another one. Is hotel let's see, I'm not quite sure I can read all this. Is hotel B eligible for the PPP second draw if they opened in 2019?
So if the hotel, so when it comes to PPP in general, you had to have been operating, your business had to have been operating as of February 15th, 2020. So if you've had, payroll and you're operating and you were operating in 2019, there's nothing that should make on that end should make you ineligible, for PPP second draws. That's going to be the same for first draw and second draw. So if you were eligible based on when you were operating in the first draw, you're going to be eligible based on that same criteria for the second draw.
That's it. Anybody else have more questions? I think we're at the top of the hour. Pam, do you want to say anything? I don't mean to be jumping in here. You're on mute, so.
Well, we can both say something. I want to thank Dan, thank you so much. Diane, thank you. And Margaret, everybody's been so helpful to our members and our non-members. I'm pleased to see people who aren't in the chamber as well. Maybe they're prospective chamber members. So thanks again. Thanks for the support of our members, and hope to see you again soon. I'm sure we will need you again.
Oh yeah, I'm here. As you can see, I'm home if you heard my kids. Not going anywhere.
That's wonderful.
That's good.
All right, well, good.
I will email the PDF of Dan's presentation to all attendees, so watch your inbox for that. I will also, I have recorded this session, so once it downloads, I will try to get it onto our website, but I can try to email either the audio or the video. Sometimes it doesn't go if it's too big, but we'll get it to our YouTube channel so that you can rewatch it if you need to.
I got to tell my son, he's big into YouTube. He's 8. They're all into YouTube now. Say, hey, your dad's a YouTube star.
There you go. There you go.
All right, good. Take care, everybody. Be
All
safe
right,
this
take
weekend.
care.
Bye-bye.
Good weekend.
See you later. Thank you, Dan.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.